Welcome to the Businesses Start Here podcast, hosted by David Vigliotti and Vigliotti and Associates. We're here to talk with business owners and business experts to inspire and encourage entrepreneurs.
Hello, welcome back to another episode of the Businesses Start Here podcast. We've got a great guest with us today. Started his own financial services company called Just About Wealth Management. Dave Hoffman's with us, a referral partner of ours. We're excited to talk to him and get to know you a little bit better than we already do, Dave. Thanks for being on with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Sure. So, as you know, I asked everybody the same question to start. Tell us about how you got to where you are, how you started your business, and just in general, a little bit more about you.
Sure. Yeah, it's been a long and winding path for me for sure in my career. I've been doing the financial services industry for 25 years now, and just 2 years ago I started the company. So it's been a long path to get here, but I think everything that you do in life leads you to where you are, and if you get to where you want to be, I think ultimately that doesn't matter how you got there. A lot of my career I spent with one company, and what I did was basically start at right around the time when the market was really bad, the dot-com bubble burst. Right when I started to actually go out and try to get my own clients.
Oh, that sounds fun.
Yeah, it made life pretty interesting back then. But I learned a lot of lessons with not a lot of clients, so that was a really good thing. The thing that I liked about this industry, getting into this industry, is I really felt that I could always be entrepreneurial even if I worked for a company. And that's what I did for many years at the company I worked at before. Really gave me an opportunity to go out and kind of build a business the way I wanted to build it for many, many years. And yet I also had the support of the company behind me. So I think that was a really good thing. And so I was there for 20 years. I was there for just right around 20 years. And I kind of always thought as the years went on that I would probably end up taking over the company at some point down the road. I was the second largest shareholder in the company. And so I felt that was the path that I was on.
Right.
As the company grew, we acquired a couple of other companies. And I was pretty actively involved in that process, and so at the time I felt that was a good thing to be involved in the process and really help to sell these people on why they should join our company. Mm-hmm. But I think ultimately it changed the company to the point where I wasn't so sure if I was the heir apparent anymore, and so that started me thinking about the future. I've kind of always considered myself to be an entrepreneurial person in a lot of areas of my life. I started a networking group through BNI. You might have heard of Business Network International. Mm-hmm. My group just hit 20 years that I started. So, I've been doing that for a long time. I started my own AAU baseball team that I ran for about 4 or 5 years. Okay. So always did a lot of things, kind of going out there and trying to be entrepreneurial. Right. And that's what always attracted me to the financial services industry as well. So, when I became, when the future became a little more unclear, I started to think about, is it time to start my own thing? Fortunately and unfortunately, I guess, an opportunity came along to go into another firm with an owner who was looking to possibly retire down the road, and so I made the jump there. Ultimately, that ended up not working out, and again, more lessons learned. I think that's the biggest thing that I've taken from all of my experiences is learn those lessons, and hopefully learn them by other people making them and not you, ultimately. Yeah. And so. When that didn't work out, I said, okay, now is the time. Yeah. If I'm going to do this, I was in my late 40s at the time. I just turned 50 now. So I have enough years that I can, build a nice company for myself before I retire. And we've been doing it for 2 years now.
It's interesting you bring up age. I think I talked about this before on the podcast. But actually, the most successful entrepreneurs statistically are in the 45 to 50-year-old range when they start the business.
That's interesting.
And it makes a lot of sense when you think about it. I mean, you have 20 years, 20 you said, or 25?
25.
Bad habits, you learn what you don't want to do. Mm-hmm. So I think it makes a lot of sense that that's the age range.
Yeah.
Obviously, you hear of like a Mark Zuckerberg and these unicorns that
Mhm.
just have a great
Yeah.
idea that explodes. Whether they're not skilled at running a business when they started, they are
Yeah.
now, but they need to get good people around them that are probably in that same age range. So
Yeah.
you were kind of in that sweet spot without it. Seems like you didn't realize it, but that's statistically the most successful age range for
Interesting.
entrepreneurs.
Yeah, I kind of parallel it to being a parent. You take the good and the bad from your parents, and you kind of take that into your own, raise into your own children.
Right.
And so that's what I really have tried to do business wise. Take the good and the bad that I've learned from other people over time, and implement that into my business, and create something that that I've always kind of had in the back of my mind as a way I wanted to do something.
Yeah, it's interesting. One of the jobs I had might not even be on topic, but we used to watch this is when The Office first came out. So some of the things you'd see in The Office that were just absolutely ridiculous, it's like, I can see that happening here. So trying to take those lessons of this is just absolutely wrong and write that in your own business is probably one of the biggest advantages of starting after you've had years of experience. It's usually not that extreme, but the place I was working was kind of extreme to begin with. But using those life skills, transferable skills, but also, especially because you were in the financial services industry, you understand business in general. So it kind of set you up. You understand the industry, you have the experience, and you have general business knowledge. I'm sure you took plenty of business classes in college and things like that. So you were kind of primed yourself. Like you said, you took a kind of a windy road to get here, but every step along the way set you up for that success.
Yeah. I've always tried to be a sponge, wherever I was in my life. And so I really paid a lot of attention to how the prior companies were run. And I think I learned, like I said, I really learned a lot of things, the good and the bad, of how I would want to do it myself. And people said to me, when you start your own company, there are always going to be surprises around the corner. I honestly never had any, because I really, two reasons for that. I paid attention to what was going on at my prior companies, and also I surrounded myself with, I surrounded myself with people who could help me with all of the things that I needed help with. I have a good network of people that I drew on when I was starting the company, that I didn't have to learn how to do everything myself. I just went to certain people and said, can you help me with this part of starting this business?
Right. Is that where it's kind of that BNI, that networking, whether it was BNI people or not, you just were around a lot of people.
That's right. Yeah, and I knew who to go to for what, and so there really weren't ever any surprises there, which was really fortunate, because I hear a lot of stories of that from other people.
Yeah, it's interesting. One of the main topics we come to a lot is have people around you. Nobody's good at everything, right? So you're good at financial services. You're great with clients, great with compliance and all of that stuff, but you're probably not an accountant, you're probably not a lawyer, all these things that you needed help with. Just making sure you have the right people around you, and you spent 25 years getting those people around you without even that being the plan at the time. It just was fortuitous that you'd already done that.
Yeah, exactly. And then in a company, you do the same thing when you're building a company. You hire people who can take care of the things that aren't your areas of expertise, and I have a great staff of 3 full-time people who really do all of the things that aren't my strengths overall, and it allows me to focus my time on my strengths and not on the things that just waste a lot of time and don't really give me a lot of benefit overall.
Right. I think that's an area too. So we talked about it actually it wasn't on the podcast, it was on something else I did, but one of the best hires is an admin, because there's so many tasks that can take you a significant amount of time away from building either revenue or building structure in the firm. But having someone to take some of these tasks that even an entry-level person could do and move it off your plate because your skill is in a very specific area. So having that specific role, I think, is very important, especially in our industries where there's a lot of printing or emailing communication that can be kind of shifted to somebody else.
Yeah. When I started the company, it was right during COVID, right when when the quarantine was ending.
Okay.
That I started it, and my wife was a teacher, and she wasn't working in her teaching, a preschool teacher. She wasn't working in her teaching job at the time, so she got enlisted to come work full time for me for the first several months that the company was in existence, and she was helping to handle a very large stack of paper at that point, and she came in when I needed her, but then we let her go as soon as we could because we knew that was not her passion, you know. But I hired the person who had worked for me as an assistant for 10 years at my prior company, and that was a key hire for me overall. My clients loved her. She was really good. She actually was the director of compliance at that prior place.
Okay.
So I didn't have to deal with all the compliance issues. She handles all of that for us, and so in so many different ways, she filled in so many gaps. She handles all the HR side of things for us as well. So I think it's really important to get people in there who can be all those pieces of the puzzle that when you put it all together, you have the full puzzle.
Yeah. So as you left out on your own, kind of switching gears a little bit, I assume you probably couldn't take many of your clients with you, or maybe you could, but how did you build your client base from, I assume, what was essentially zero or whatever you were able to take legally with you?
Yeah, fortunately I was able to take a good number of people. I did have shares in my prior company that I was able to exchange, and have the ability to take some clients with me. So it worked out pretty well in that regard to start the company. But I knew I didn't want to be what we call in our industry a lifestyle practice, which is kind of, you golf a lot and, you work a small number of hours a week, and, I wanted to build something that will exist when I'm no longer in the industry.
Right.
And so to do that, you have to build a client base. So for me, it was continuing what I'd always done and always really enjoyed, which is networking. And I network in a lot of different ways. I'm on a couple of charitable organizations. I'm on the River City Brass Band's board of directors. I'm on the Pittsburgh Rotary. I'm in the downtown Rotary chapter. I'm the chair of our foundation, and I still do BNI 20 years later. We're in 3 or 4 chambers. I think 4 chambers right now. Brian handles one of them, and I handle the others. He helps me with them as well. So really just getting our names out there as much as possible. I really enjoy networking activities, going to events and meeting people, things like that. So that's been a huge part of it for us.
So one thing you talked about earlier on that I wanted to come back to is you, specifically when you switched employers right before you started your firm, and the lessons learned there. And it sounds like learning has been one of your keys, or at least observing what's going on. So tell us a little bit about your learning process. Are there books you read, or is it more just experience-based? How do you make sure that you're keeping up with what you need to one, be in specific to the industry you're in, but also in business in general?
Yeah. I'm not a person who reads a lot of books about how to be successful in business, and there are people out there, and I'm sure they've gotten a lot of good things out of it. Actually, at one point I hired a business coach, in my career, and we went through the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, which is a great book. I learned some things from it, but that's probably one of the only books I ever went through. I did do Dale Carnegie's course, which is a really good course for business people, especially if you're someone who is getting out there in front of people. It really helps in a lot of different ways. I think that was useful too. But I'm not the person who's going out and finding the next, New York Times bestseller business book and reading it.
Right.
It's really more experiential for me, just trying to see what other people are doing and what works for them and what